So this is all going to come together pretty easily. I'll have my connector here, and this is just a rubber gasket with a couple. I do have a hole right here, so I am going to make sure I cover that, that way I don't lose any air suction. And that gets tightened up. And hose clamps, you could either use a screwdriver or an open-end wrench or a socket set just to kind of tighten up the hose clamp, and that'll hold everything in place. And then because I'm ventilating out through the ceiling, I'm going to put a 45-degree angle on here, because most of the time this is probably going to be about 45 degrees, and this will point the tubing closer to vertical. So I want to tighten that hose clamp. And from here, I want to put my blast gate, which will allow me to open or close this half of the ventilation system. So get that nice and snug. Just for repairs, I want to put my bolting system towards the front so it'll be easier access later on. Tighten that up. Again, all these parts are more or less for dust collection for woodworking sites. So woodworking catalogs are a great place to find any of this, or Amazon. Okay, we'll tighten this up. Okay, so that's all connected, it's all snug. And again, when this is pointed down towards the soldering station, I want that about 45-degree angle, which will make this vertical, which will help me ventilate out through my ceiling. So I've got my fan, and I'm going to mount it to a board. I made this, made sure it was more than 36 inches across. That way I can tie into 3 floor joists and it will stabilize it. And I also put these verticals on. I just kind of screwed and glued them there, and that'll again stabilize it a little bit more. I could have used a 2x10 and just mounted it to a 2x10 or something like that. Something at least as wide as the fan. I just chose this route just because I had extra plywood and I didn't have to go to the hardware store. So I'm going to mark where the holes go. We're going to drill and then bolt it to the board. I'm going to make sure that I'm using lock washers on it, so because it's going to be vibrating, I don't want it to loosen up over time, and the lock washers will help that. So I just marked where to drill. I got myself some 5/16 bolts, which those will come up through. I'll put a washer and a lock washer and then a nut, and then secure this to the board. The fan was provided with an extension cord, but because I was going to have it up in the attic, I wanted to add on a longer cord, just so I could run the cord for the fan down through the ceiling and then plug it into my speed control. Now, I did the wiring myself, but I would recommend, if you do want to go this route, to hire an electrician to do this part. And you don't need to put the fan up in the attic. I wanted it up there just to get it out of the way, and because I decided to vent it out an overhang on my front porch. Because my studio is in the front of my house, I didn't want to vent through the wall or the window. I want it to be a little bit more inconspicuous. So here I'm wiring on just a longer cord. And there are lots of other options of places you could put your fan. I've seen some people bolt them to the wall. You can actually create an insulated box that might go underneath your soldering station, and that way the insulated box could cut down on the noise as well. I just wanted mine more out of the way, so I did opt to put mine up in the attic. So now we'll test it just to make sure it works, and also to figure out which way the air is blowing. So this system here will get mounted up into the attic. I made it longer than 36 inches. That way I can span over 3 joists in the ceiling. That way I can screw down into those joists and attach it very secure. Because it is going to be vibrating, I wanted to make sure I was spanning at least 3 so it doesn't shake my ceiling. I'll then attach one hose that will be vent out through my porch, so that'll vent any kind of fumes outside, and then the other side will suck air, and that will be going through the ceiling and down to both my soldering station and my station for the pickle. Now this part will be mounted under the overhang of my porch. That way it looks clean from the outside. That'll get mounted up into the eave, and then the hose will get clamped on top of that. And it also has little grates here so no little critters can get into the house. So I'm here on my front porch, and so you can kind of see the exhaust up here, and that will just blow out the fumes from my studio. So it's barely noticeable. Pretty clean. I don't have to worry about water because it's in an overhang. Now I'm back in my studio and I'm trying to figure out where I want to come through my ceiling. I want to be in between 2 ceiling joists. One way to figure out where the joists are located is to use a magnet. So I'm going to search around for it's basically a drywall screw that the magnet is going to attach to, and that'll tell me where my ceiling joist is. So I have one of them there, and there's my second. So that should be about 16 inches on center. And so I'm going to approximate the center of it, and that's where I'm going to drill my hole. I am a little nervous, I want to get the location right. So what I'm going to do is I'll draw a circle where I want to drill. I'm going to start by drilling a small hole. And that way I can go up in the attic and check just to make sure I'm centered between a couple joists. So you can see here I'm sticking a little piece of metal up. I'm just going to clamp it in place, and then I can go up in the attic and look and adjust if I need to. So the next step is to drill a hole through the ceiling. I'm using a hole drill, and it's a 6-inch hole drill. So now I have this plastic flange with the holes. We made that washer. That will get mounted to the ceiling, and then I can connect my ductwork to that. And this piece up here will go up into the attic. So there'll be this piece, some drywall, and then this piece. That way I can connect my 6-inch ductwork both here and up in the attic. Will lead to the fan and then go outside, and then this will lead down to a slightly below it. We'll have a Y connector that will connect to 4-inch ductwork. So now I'm going to go install this, or at least bring it up to the ceiling. That way I can bolt it from down here, hopefully. I hope I can line everything up from down here. Now I'm bolting it to the ceiling, and I was using tape to kind of hold my bolts up. And while I put on the washers and lock washers. So now I have the nut. I've been using sticky tape on the end of my finger to hold the nut in place, just because I was having a hard time reaching up and around the other flange, and this seemed to work. That way I don't need one person up in the attic and one person down here. There we go, we got it to catch. And then snug it up. I'll go around. I've got the rest of them in there loose, but I can go around now and tighten them up a little bit. There we go. And that's in there pretty secure. So now it's time to go back up in the attic and hook up the motor. And so I'm going to attach the 6-inch tubing to up in the attic, and then attach that to the motor, and then attach another one that will lead to the outside. I'm going to not bring you up there right now. I'm going to go ahead and do the work, and then I will I'll give you a little tour of the attic and show you what I've done, just because it's a little tight and dark up there. So here's the system up in the attic, and you can see over in here the vent hose going down into my studio space. And then the fan was mounted on that board that I had made earlier, which spans 3 ceiling joists. And then it goes and vents under the eave. And that's the eave of an overhang that I have on my porch. So I installed a little exhaust vent in the ceiling there, and it just vents out into my front yard. So it's barely noticeable. And this is a quick look at the finished system after I've connected all the hoses. I've included a list of all the parts that I use for my system. And again, depending on where you're putting your fan and how you're routing the exhaust, you can, a lot of these wood dust collection parts, they have like 45-degree angles, 90-degree angles, so you can pick and choose what you need for your system if you choose to build something like this.